in Unit 4 in Literature, a Montgomery Bus Boycott. So we were talking about Joanne Robinson, Rosa Parks' friend, dear friend, when she heard about what happened to Rosa. And what happened to Rosa, Bilqis? Bilqis, can you tell us what happened to Rosa Parks? Yes, dear. Who can say, girls, what happened to Rosa Parks? Please raise your hand. Bilqis, your mic is working, huh? Layan Maghrabi, what happened to Rosa Parks?
Yes, from the beginning, miss?
Yeah, Rosa, yeah.
Yeah, she was riding a bus. She came from work and she was tired, and she sat in the white black area because they were full meal. And then a white man came and he wanted to, like, she should have sat, no, she should have moved from her seat according to him, basically. And then the bus driver, he went to her and he told her, like, you have to move. And then the police came and they arrested her. And yeah.
Yes, yes. So, what was the reaction of Joanne Robinson? What did she think of? Thank you, Layan. Layan Fadl. What did Joanne Robinson thought of?
Miss, may you repeat your question?
What did Joanne Robinson, okay, Rose's friend, the one who is talking here in the memoir, what did she do? What did she think of?
She wanted to defend her friend, but she didn't know if she had the power to.
And then she came up with a brilliant idea, which is,
Um, 1 second. She would arrange a boycott.
she will arrange a boycott. She copied with the help of her colleagues. She printed thousands of leaflets, distributed them to encourage people to boycott buses when she wanted them to boycott the buses. Thank you, Layan. Durra, when did she want them to stop it, riding the bus? What
Yes,
was
ma'am.
the day?
It was on Monday, which was the day
Why
that,
she choose?
uh, because Rosa Parks was arrested at that day.
Yes, Rosa Parks was arrested, and her trial will be on Monday.
Yes.
So she encouraged them to uh, boycott buses on that day of Rosa's trial. Okay, can you see now the side, girls? The book side? So here we are going to read what was written in the leaflets. What was written in the leaflets? Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Yes. So we take Fatima.
Yes, miss.
Read, dear.
By 4 a.m. Friday, the sheets has been duplicated, cut in thirds, and bundled each
From
day.
another Negro, dear. Another Negro.
Uh,
This was what was written inside the leaflet.
Another Negro woman has been arrested and thrown in jail because she refused to get up out of her seat on the bus for a white person to sit down. It is the second time since the Claudette Colvin case that a Negro woman has been arrested for the same thing. This has to be stopped. Negroes have rights too. For
This
it
has to be stopped. Underline it, girls. Or highlight it because this is a very important sentence. This has to be stopped. Continue.
Negroes have rights too, for if Negroes did not ride the buses, they could not operate. Three-fourths of the riders are Negroes, yet we are arrested or have to stand over empty seats. If we do not do something to stop these arrests, they will continue. The next time it may be you or your daughter or your mother. This woman's case will come up on Monday. We are therefore asking every Negro to stay off the buses Monday in a protest of arrest and trial. Don't ride the buses to work, to town, to school, or anywhere on Monday. You can afford to stay out of school for a day if you have no other way to go except by bus. You can also afford to.
Thank you, Fatima. So what did she write here, Fatima? What is she telling them to do?
She's telling them to not to go to their school or offices, and not to use the bus, so that another time not any other woman would be arrested.
Yes, thank you, dear. Jumana,
But Miss, why is it only on Monday?
the day of Rosa Parks trial.
Oh, okay. So they were like, it's okay to ride bus other days of the
You,
week.
this is how they started, and then you'll know what happened.
Ah,
Yes, Jumana,
Yes, Miss.
continue reading, dear. If you work, take a cab.
If you work, take a cab
Yes,
or walk.
it's line 112. Hmm.
Yes. But please, children and grown-ups, don't ride the bus at all on Monday. Please stay off of all buses Monday. Between 4 and 7 a.m., the two students and I mapped out distribution routes for the notices. Some of the WPC officers previously had discussed how and where to deliver thousands of leaflets announcing uh, a boycott, and those plans now stood me in good stead. We outlined our routes, arranged the bundles in sequence, stacked them in our cars, and arrived at my 8 a.m. class, in which both young men were enrolled. With several minutes to spare, we weren't even tired or hungry. Just like me, the two students weren't even tired or hungry. Just like me, the two students felt a sense of satisfaction at being able to contribute to the cause of justice. Before
Yes. So what happened here, Jumana? What is she saying here? They planned the routes to distribute the leaflets. They arranged the bundle in sequences, bundle of leaflets, put them in their cars, and they started to distribute them, right? For
yes,
what, Jumana? What does she want?
um,
What does she want? What what is the main idea for
uh,
the leaflet?
to not ride the bus on Monday.
Yes, excellent. Uh, thank you, dear. Joanna, Joanna, Liliane,
Yes, miss.
Liliane, read it, Liliane. Before Monday,
Before Monday was half gone, Negroes had made history. Never before had they united in such a manner. There was open respect and admiration in the eyes of many whites who had looked on before, dubious and amused. Even clerks in dime stores, all white, were more cordial. They were heard to add, after a purchase by a black customer, "Y'all come back to see us," which was a very unusual occurrence. The black customers held their heads higher. They felt reborn, important for the first time. A great degree of police pride was exhibited. Many were themselves surprised their at the response of the masses and could not explain, if they had wanted to, what had changed them overnight in fearless, courageous, proud people, standing together for human dignity, civil
dignity.
rights, dignity, civil rights, and yes, self-respect. There was a stick-togetherness that drew them like a magnet. They showed a genuine fondness for one another. They were really free, free inside. They felt it, acted it, manifested it in their entire beings. They took great pride in being black.
They took great pride in being black. So what happened here? Before Monday was half gone, the leaflets, Negroes had made history. Negroes had made history. Never before had they united in such a manner. This was the first time they unite. There was open respect and admiration in the eyes of many whites who had looked on before. Okay, here. Is it an action or a reaction, girls, of the white community?
Reaction.
Reaction. So please underline it and write next to it reaction of the white community. There was open respect and admiration in the eyes of many whites who had looked on before, dubious and amused. Even clerks in dime stores. What is dime stores, Layan? Read it from down. Layan Maghrabi.
Yes, it's department stores with low prices.
Yes, with low prices. Even the clerks there, they respected the blacks. All white were more cordial. They were heard to add, after a purchase by a black customer, you all come back to see us, which was a very unusual occurrence. The black customers held their heads higher. They held their heads higher. They felt reborn, important for the first time. So what is the reaction for the black community? Who can say? Yes, Lujain. What is the blacks' reaction here?
They felt reborn and held their heads high.
Excellent. They felt reborn and held their heads high. They felt important for the first time. Underline all of that. And this is the reaction of the black community. A greater degree of race pride. I am proud with my race. I'm proud I'm black. Was exhibited. Many were themselves surprised at the response of the masses. Even the blacks were surprised and could not explain if they had wanted to. What had changed them overnight into fearless, courageous, proud people, standing together for human dignity, civil rights, and yes, self-respect. There was a stick-togetherness that drew them like a magnet. They showed a genuine fondness for one another, genius fondness, love for one another. They were really free inside. They felt it, acted it, manifested it in their entire being. They took great pride in being black, and actually taking pride in being black took them 200 and around 70 days of bus boycotting. It was not only one day. It was 270 days of boycotting buses, which we will see together now. Wait a minute with me.
What happened to Rosa Parks? Did she but she was still arrested يعني after everything they've done, or?
Yes, I'll show you now, dear. I'll tell you now.
If you are passionate about mechanical gaming keyboards and our gold standard mechanical switches,
The life of Rosa Parks. She sat down to stand up for civil rights. 90 years ago, when Rosa Parks was growing up in Alabama, life was very unfair in the world she lived in. Black and white people were not treated equally, even though under the 14th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, the law said they must be. Instead, the government came up with a trick called separate but equal, which meant that people could still be segregated by race and skin color. In bathrooms, in shops, in restaurants, and at drinking fountains. Not very equal, right? Rosa Parks was born on February 4th, 1913. Her mother was a teacher and her father was a carpenter. When her parents separated, she moved to Montgomery in Alabama to live on her grandparents' farm. From there, she had to walk to school. Only white kids could use the bus. When her grandmother became sick and needed care, She was forced to quit school and look after her. At 19, Rosa met Raymond Parks, a barber and political activist in the fight for equal rights. They fell in love and soon they got married. Now, with his encouragement, she went back to studying and finished high school. At that time, less than 7% of the Black community graduated high school, so Rosa already stood out from the rest. After graduating, she settled into married life and took on a bunch of jobs, like doing laundry, mopping hospital floors, working in domestic service, and sewing and repairing clothes. Through her husband Raymond, Rosa got involved in the important work of the NAACP, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Soon after, she started working as a secretary at the office in Montgomery, Alabama. She was busy investigating cases of racial injustice. What makes Rosa Parks so famous is what she did on December 1st, 1955. First, you gotta know that, at the time, the buses in Montgomery were divided. A seating area for white people, and a seating area in the back for Black people. If more white passengers needed seats, then Black passengers had to move further back and stand. If there was no standing room, they had to get off the bus. That's how unequally people were treated. After a long day at work, Rosa caught the bus home. She was worn out, physically tired, and tired of all the unfairness she saw around her. She took her seat, but as the bus filled up, 2 or 3 white passengers were left standing. The bus driver asked Rosa to give up her seat and move to the back. She politely refused and stayed put. Think what guts that takes. I felt a determination cover my body like a quilt on a winter's night, she later said. The driver called the police and she was arrested and put in jail. On Monday, December 5th, 1955, the day of Rosa's trial for disorderly conduct where she was found guilty, the Black community of Montgomery were organized, determined, and ready to act with a peaceful protest. They handed out leaflets that said,
"We are asking every Negro to stay off the buses Monday in protest of the arrest and trial. You can afford to stay out of school for one day. If you work, take a cab or walk. But please, children and grown-ups, do not ride the bus at all on Monday."
That Monday, no one used the buses. Everyone stuck to the boycott. People organized car sharing. Cabs charge only 10 cents for a ride, and a lot of the 40,000 people just walked. Do you have any idea how long they kept up the protest? 381 days. That's more than a year. Imagine how tough that must have been. Their victory came a year later when the Supreme Court said the segregation on public transport was against the law. Rosa Parks devoted the rest of her life to the fight for equal rights. Rosa wasn't the first to refuse to give up her bus seat to a white passenger. Don't forget brave women like Lily Mae Bradford, Irene Morgan, and Claudette Colvin, and other activists before her who did the same. Rosa Parks died in Detroit, Michigan in 2005 at the age of 92. Today, Rosa's defiance remains a symbol for us of everything we admire: courage, integrity, dignity, and true determination. No wonder she lives on forever as the mother of the freedom movement.
For just $67, you can make as many videos as you want, and you never need to pick up a camera or use.
We barely get the whole story when it comes down to the teaching of the Montgomery Bus Boycott. It was probably taught to you like this. Rosa Parks, a tired seamstress, was arrested for refusing to give up her seat to a white person while riding on a segregated Montgomery bus on December 1st, 1955. This sparked a large-scale boycott that included prominent civil rights leaders like Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and ended segregation on city buses. Boom. Done. Next chapter. Yeah, that doesn't even scratch the surface on what all happened. Yes, the boycott did occur after Rosa Parks' arrest in 1955. But the catalyst to this protest started way back in 1946 when Mary Fairburg started the Women's Political Council. This league of black female professionals encouraged black residents to register to vote and to participate in more civic activities. Sparks, who chaired the English department at Alabama State College, now university, later wrote that she created the council due to a series of racially charged events. In 1949, Georgia native Joanne Robinson started teaching English at the same college. Robinson got her first taste of Montgomery segregationist culture while riding on a bus during Christmas break. While lost in thought, Robinson sat in the empty white section, but the bus driver wasn't having any of that. He stopped the bus and then started yelling at Robinson to the point that she felt like a dog. At least that's what she wrote in her memoir. She fled the bus because she thought the driver was going to hit her. So when Robinson took over Burke's spot as president of the Women's Political Council in 1950, she shifted the group's energy to fight the abuse that black citizens face on city buses. Council members collected complaints from black bus riders about their negative experiences and then presented those experiences to the city officials. Council members demanded that they add more bus stops in black communities and that they end the practice of forcing black individuals to pay at the front of the bus but then enter from the back of the bus. The city was slow to abide by those demands. Shocker. In May 1954, the Supreme Court ruled on Brown versus Board of Education, which ended separate but equal schooling. Well, on paper, but that's for another video. Several days later, Robinson wrote a letter to the Montgomery mayor, basically telling him, just FYI, blacks represent the bulk of your bus riding clientele. She then said a boycott is being planned and time is running out. Tick-tock, tick-tock, their voices were still ignored, and frustration continued to build. So fast forward to December 1st, 1955, more than a year and a half after Robinson sent her letter. This is when the story we think we know took place. Rosa Parks, the veteran NAACP activist, by the way, said nah to giving up her seat to a white person. And yeah, she was tired of being a second-class citizen. Now, Rosa Parks wasn't the first person to go up against segregated bus seating. Claudette Colvin, a Montgomery teen, was also arrested for refusing to give up her seat 9 months before Rosa Parks. But civil rights leaders weren't sure they wanted someone who was young, unmarried, and pregnant to be the symbol of a large-scale bus boycott. However, when Parks, a married and well-respected member of the community, was arrested, the Women's Political Council essentially said, now's the time to shoot our shot. They laid out the foundation of the boycott. Now all they had to do was build up community support. So Joanne Robinson got busy. She drafted a flyer charging the black community to show up for a boycott 4 days after Parks' arrest. Another Alabama State professor and Women's Political Council member, Delma Glass, organized students to help Robinson and Mary Fairburks distribute the flyers all across the city. Surprised at the success of the one-day bus boycott, the Women's Political Council and the local NAACP decided that they wanted to see if they could keep this party going. They organized a group led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to oversee the ongoing boycott. Meanwhile, Robinson and the Women's Political Council were charged with organizing carpools so that the protesters could get around. What was supposed to be a one-day boycott ended up lasting 381 days. It only ended when the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that Montgomery segregated buses were unconstitutional. So it turns out that multiple women played major roles in a boycott that catapulted MLK into fame. But they are barely footnotes in our history books, if at all, despite the threats and intimidation that they faced. Robinson said a police officer threw a brick through her window and acid was poured on her car. A state-appointed committee interrogated both Mary Fairburks and Joanne Robinson for their activism in 1960. Both women ended up resigning from their positions at Alabama State College. In her memoir, Robinson shies away from taking all the credit for the boycott's success. Instead, she honored the entire group, saying the black women did it. Now, if only we would listen to her. I'm Star Dunnigan with Reckon. If you want more stuff like this, follow Reckon on.
Okay, girls, so you got the whole idea? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
You got it? Okay, wait a minute. I want to show you Rosa Parks before we finish. Honoring Rosa Parks. Here is it.
عملنا موقف نخلي الأطفال فيه يعبروا عن حبهم لأمهاتهم من غير ما يعرفوا.
Now to one of the most memorable Americans ever to confront the issue of racial segregation head-on in this country 40 years ago. Rosa Parks, who in refusing to give up her seat on a city bus to a white man became the Mother Superior of the Civil Rights Movement. This week, at the age of 82, she's traveling this country with a group of students, her story and what she is telling them in her own words tonight.
I remember well these struggles that we went to during my childhood when the Ku Klux Klan was very active. It just made us stronger to continue the struggle for freedom. This was the seat that I took as I got on the bus. A few white people boarded the bus, and one man was left standing, and I certainly did not plan to stand up, and I didn't consider myself breaking the law because I was in what was supposed to be our part of the bus. So my arrest brought about a protest from the people of Montgomery that lasted 381 days. And when we did go back on the bus, we didn't. The Supreme Court had handed down a decision that there would be no more racial segregation in transportation. When I was on the bus the time I was arrested, the only thing that was on my mind was that I did not want to be treated in that way.
It took her sitting down to get a people to stand up. And we can never, ever, ever forget her for that.
That happened to Rosa Parks in 1955. Just one more reminder that the happy-go-lucky 50s were not at all what they seem to be in the rose-colored glasses of our memories.
Can you tell us why you didn't sit in the back of the bus that day?
About the third stop from where I boarded the bus, there were some white people got on, and they took all the front seats and left one man standing. And when the driver saw this man standing up,
White man.
Yes, he was white. He didn't. The passenger didn't ask for the seat at all. Or didn't say anything, but just found a place to stand. The driver noticed him standing, and that is when he told the four of us to let him have those seats, which meant the four of us would have been standing, and then this man would only occupy one seat, and then there would be 3 vacant seats.
But you weren't supposed to sit next to the white man.
That was the rule then.
So you did not get up?
No, I didn't.
You know why?
Yes, because I didn't think I should have to get up. I had already paid my fare, and I'm sure he didn't pay any more than I did. And I didn't think that once we take a seat, even in under the segregation conditions, that we should be made to stand up in a crowded bus.
Are you bitter over it?
No, I'm not.
Why
not at this time. Well, in fact, during our protest in Montgomery, we did have some white people who
joined with you.
Joined with us, and they suffered a great deal. And I felt that it was, in fact, Dr. Martin Luther King used to say himself that it was not a black and white issue, but it was right and wrong.
Right, absolutely. So you didn't hold it against collectively all white people?
That's true. I did not.
What then did you do with your anger?
I tried to use my anger. I tried to have as little anger as possible, but I tried to use it to help people who were suffering and many who were discouraged and did not have the courage to try to take a stand for themselves.
Do you feel, Rosa, that this movement has been a success?
It has we have made many improvements from way back there when we had legally enforced racial segregation, but we still have many challenges to face, and we have many problems to solve.
Do you have faith?
Yes, I still have faith that it is possible.
So, girls, after a few years of this conversation, Obama became a president. So, how do you imagine the feelings of Black American when they found themselves, one of them hired as a president of the whole country?
I think they felt proud and victorious, like they finally did it, achieved their
Yes,
goal.
they finally did it. Excellently. They finally did it. The president is Black. It is a long history of slavery, and after slavery, long history of discrimination and racism. And as Rima said, they still face racism until previous year when George Floyd was killed for no reason but being Black. Okay, and they started the protest, the demonstrations of Black Lives Matter. Okay. So next time we'll solve the questions of the first read and we take the second read together. Okay, see you tomorrow. I'll start recording here. See you tomorrow.